Here's a number that should stop you before you downsize. When Australians move to a smaller home, most actually end up better off financially. But the single thing they're most likely to regret isn't the money, and it isn't the house. It's the suburb they chose. About 1 in 6 regret the move outright. But dig into the data, and something stranger surfaces. After downsizing, people's finances improve. Their overall life satisfaction often improves. And yet, their feelings about their new neighborhood reliably fall. Today, you'll see why it's the place, not the property, where downsizing quietly goes wrong, and how to pick a suburb you won't regret. I went through the Australian downsizing research, the long-run satisfaction data, and the studies on driving, healthcare access, and isolation in later life. Because the suburb is the one decision you can undo with a renovation. Get the house wrong, and you adapt. Get the suburb wrong, and you're looking at isolation, a loss of independence the day you stop driving, distance from the care you'll come to need, or the brutal cost of moving all over again. And here's the part that catches people out. You'd assume the money is the risk and the lifestyle is the reward. The data says it's the other way around. Downsizers tend to get the finances right and the location wrong. You obsess over the kitchen and the bedrooms. The mistake was on the map. Quick honest note before we start. This is general market analysis, not financial advice. Your circumstances are your own. So let's be straight about the numbers. Because you will see frightening headlines claiming 7 in 10 retirees regret downsizing. In Australia, that is simply not what the evidence shows. The honest figure is closer to 1 in 6 who regret the move itself. Anyone selling you 70% is borrowing an overseas survey about movers in general and dressing it up as Australian retirement data. But the more revealing number is the split. Study after study finds the same thing. After downsizing, people's financial satisfaction goes up. Their life satisfaction often goes up, while their satisfaction with their new neighborhood goes down. So they're better off on paper, and quietly less at home where they actually live. And the reason is simple. Once you see it, you chose the house with your eyes and the suburb with a brochure. You walked the home. You opened the cupboards. You pictured your furniture in the lounge. The suburb? You saw it on a sunny inspection day, filtered through the agent's pitch. You bought the property. You inherited the place. And here is why that's the dangerous way round. A house, you can change. Knock out a wall, add a handrail, redo the kitchen. A suburb, you cannot. You can't move the hospital closer. You can't add a bus route that isn't there. You can't manufacture the neighbors, the footpaths, the community that was never built. The house is the thing you can fix. The suburb is the thing you're stuck with. So if the suburb matters most, and it's the thing we most often get wrong, the obvious question is why? Why do careful, sensible people, who would never dream of buying a house without an inspection, choose an entire suburb on a feeling? Because they measure it with the wrong yardstick entirely. When retirees pick a place to downsize to, the research is clear on what tops the list. Low maintenance, no big garden, no gutters to clean. A smaller, simpler home. And the nice area, feeling the cafe strip, the view, the climate, the sense that it's just a lovely spot to wake up in. All perfectly reasonable. And all about one thing, comfort, today. And here's the list that barely registers. Can you get around here without a car? How far is the doctor, the hospital? Are there footpaths, a bus, a chemist within walking distance? Is there real community, not just the friends you're bringing with you, but clubs, groups, ways to belong if those friends move away or pass on? These questions rarely make the short list. And these are the questions that decide everything. Because here's the trap. In a single line, you choose the suburb that's perfect for the person you are at 65, but you have to live in it as the person you'll become at 85. And those are two very different people with two completely different sets of needs. At 65, you're active. You drive everywhere without a second thought. Your friends are close, your health is good, and the cafe strip and the view are exactly what you came for. So that's what you choose for. But the research on aging is blunt about what comes next. Driving stops for most of us. Eventually, it stops. Energy fades. The body slows. And the friends you built your days around start moving closer to their own children, or they pass away. So the suburb that was a dream at 65, scenic, quiet, miles from anywhere quietly, becomes a trap at 85, when you can't drive to a single part of it, and there's no one left to drive you. And it's the social side the data underlines hardest. Because strong connections matter most precisely, when your health begins to fail, they're tied not only to your happiness, but to how long you actually live. A socially thin suburb beautiful, but with no real community to fold into, feels fine while your old friends are still around. It is devastating once they're not. And remember why all this outweighs the house itself. Get the house wrong, and you adapt. Add a handrail, redo the bathroom, rent it out. Get the suburb wrong, and your only real fix is to move again, a second uprooting, later in life, with less energy and less money to manage it. The house is a decision you can revise. The suburb is one you mostly can't. So the question was never, is this a lovely place to live right now? The real question, the only one that counts, is, will this place still hold me up when I'm at my most vulnerable? We are. Optimizing the wrong variables. And over the next few minutes, I'll show you precisely which variables actually decide whether a suburb carries you or strands you. And the first one is the thing almost nobody plans for, even though it comes for most of us in the end. The day the keys are quietly taken away. The day you stop driving. The day you stop driving. It's the one part of getting older almost nobody is willing to picture. So let's picture it. Because the numbers are quietly certain. Of Australians over 80, roughly 4 in 10 no longer drive. Over a 15-year stretch, about 1 in 5 give it up altogether. So if you downsize at 68 or 70, there's a very real chance that somewhere in your 80s, the keys go handed over by choice, by a doctor, or simply by your own eyes and reflexes. It isn't a maybe. For most of us, it's a win. And here's why that single event matters more than almost anything else about your suburb. Because the moment you can't drive, your suburb shows you what it truly is. If you chose the quiet place down a country road 10 minutes from the nearest shop, that 10 minutes was always 10 minutes by car. On foot, at 85, it isn't 10 minutes. It's impossible. Every bit of peace you bought the space, the quiet, the view was secretly priced in petrol. And the day you can no longer pay it, the whole place quietly stops working. And this is not mere inconvenience. The research on what happens when older people stop driving is genuinely sobering. Giving up the car nearly doubles the risk of depression. It shrinks a person's social circle by around half in the years that follow. It raises the odds of ending up in residential care, and even after accounting for health, it's linked to dying sooner. Losing the car isn't losing a convenience. For a great many people, it's the start of losing everything else. Because think about what that car was really carrying. It carried you to the doctor, on time, every time, to the shops, without having to ask a soul, to your friends, your club, the small daily errands that are really just excuses to be around other people. Take the car away in a car-dependent suburb, and none of that simply gets harder. It starts to require a phone call, a favor, a wait, until, quietly, you stop bothering. And that is the moment isolation moves in and sits down. So, what's the alternative? A suburb where losing the car changes far less, where the chemist, the doctor, the shops, and a cafe sit a flat, safe walk-away real footpaths, dropped curbs, a bench to rest on, where a bus actually turns up often enough to be useful, and you can climb aboard with a walking frame. It's not a glamorous list. There's no view on it. But it is the entire difference between a suburb that strands you and one that carries you on the day the keys are gone. And this is exactly where the tree change dream turns dangerous. Because the very places that look most idyllic at 65, the little town, the coastal spot down a quiet lane, are so often the ones with no real bus, no taxi, and services scattered miles apart. We've talked on this channel about the pull of moving regional. This is the part of that choice you have to walk into with both eyes open. The further you go from a center, the more your entire life leans on a car you may not always be able to drive. But transport is only the first thing your suburb quietly decides for you. Because once getting around becomes hard, A second question turns from minor to urgent one you also waved away at 65. How far, exactly, is the help you're going to need? How far is the help you're going to need? And there are two kinds, the medical and the human. Both drift further away in exactly the places that feel best at 65. Start with the medical. Because in late old age, your relationship with healthcare changes entirely. It stops being the occasional checkup and becomes a steady, sometimes constant, part of your week. The GP, the specialist, the scans, the hospital. And across regional and outer Australia, every one of those sits further away. A routine appointment can mean a long drive. A specialist, the cardiologist, the oncologist can mean a trip to a city and a wait of months. And an emergency can mean the nearest hospital is an hour off or stretched thin by the time you arrive. And here is the cruelty of the timing. The years you will need on healthcare the most are the very same years you may no longer be able to drive to it. These two problems do not arrive separately and politely. They arrive together and they multiply. You need the doctor more than ever, and you can reach the doctor less than ever. And it isn't only hospitals. The supports that let you stay in your own home as you age, the in-home help, the respite, the allied health are thinnest in precisely the regional places retirees move to. The official wording is blunt. The more remote you are, the less likely you are to actually receive aged care. The picturesque town that promised you independence can quietly become the one place where independence is hardest to keep. But there's a second kind of help that moving puts out of reach, and it's the one people grieve the hardest, the human kind. When you move away from the life you built, the friends of 40 years, the family down the road, the neighbors who know you, you don't just change your address. You leave your safety net behind, folded up in the old suburb. And the evidence here is unambiguous. Moving away in later life is one of the strongest known triggers of loneliness. Retirees who relocate far from home report markedly higher isolation than those who stay put even when they're healthier, even when they're better off. Because a beautiful view is no substitute for someone who knows your history, someone who'd notice if you didn't appear, someone who'd drive you to the hospital at 2 a.m. And you might think I'll simply make new friends, but the deep friendships, the kind that actually hold you up in a crisis, take years to grow. And in the very towns that draw retirees, the coastal spots, the holiday places, the population is often transient, seasonal, half empty by winter. You'd be trying to put down roots in soil that keep shifting under your feet. And this is the lifestyle mirage, laid bare. The brochure sells you the beach, the cafe, the gentle pace, and an early retirement. While you can still drive and your health still holds, it often delivers exactly that. But beneath the holiday image is a brittle frame, care that's far away, services that thin out, a community that may never quite close around you. The place that's perfect for a holiday is simply not the same place that's safe for your 80s. And the mistake was never naivete. It's that nobody ever sells you the winter. They only ever sell you the summer. So suppose you see it. Suppose a few years in, you realize the suburb that looked like a dream has quietly turned into a trap. The obvious answer seems simple enough. Just move again. Fix it. But that answer carries a price tag most retirees never see coming, and it is brutal. Just move again. Fix it. It sounds so simple, so let's put a price on it. Every time you sell one home and buy another, your money does not move cleanly across with you. You leave a piece of it behind. Between the agent's commission, the legal fees, the stamp duty, the styling, the repairs, the removalist selling one place and buying another burns somewhere between 7 and 15% of the home's value every single time. On a typical Australian home, a single move can cost $60,000 or more just to carry out. Now do it twice. Move once to the suburb you come to regret, and again to escape it, and you've handed over 6 figures, gone, simply for the privilege of correcting a mistake. That's not a renovation anyone can see. It's just capital, evaporated into other people's fees. And here's the cruel twist. The losses from the first wrong move shrink what you can afford for the second. You don't only pay to fix the mistake makes the fix smaller. But the money is only half of it. Because moving, late in life, is not the adventure it was at 40. Geriatric medicine even has a name for what it can do: relocation stress syndrome, the exhaustion, the broken sleep, the grief of leaving the familiar behind, the disorientation of starting all over again in a strange place. And the second move, made to undo a mistake, lands hardest of all because now you're older with less in the tank, carrying the quiet weight of "we got it wrong." And here's where the trap truly closes. Because the very aging that finally reveals the bad suburb is the same aging that makes escaping it harder. The energy to pack up and begin again, fading. The health to manage it, declining. The money to fund it, already thinned by the first move, and by the higher costs you never budgeted for. So the window to fix the mistake is wide open early, when you don't yet know you'll need it, and closing fast by the time you do, which is why so many people never move back at all. They simply get stuck. So understand what a late life move truly is. It isn't one last lifestyle upgrade. It's a 20, even 30-year bet on a single location placed at the precise moment you know the least about how the rest of your life will actually unfold. Get the bet right and the suburb carries you, gently, to the end. Get it wrong, and it can quietly drain both your money and your margin of safety at the exact time you'll need every bit of both. But numbers like these keep it all at arm's length. To really feel what's at stake, you have to meet the people living inside it, the ones who chased the dream suburb and paid for it, and the ones who quietly got it right. Because the gap between those two groups isn't luck. It's a small handful of decisions made before either of them ever signed. So let's meet them. Two couples, the same starting point, two completely different endings. And the difference was never luck. Picture the first couple. At 68, fit and driving, they did what felt right. They sold the family home and chased the dream, the pretty coastal town, the view, the quiet, the price that felt like a quiet victory. And for the first few years, it was everything the brochure had promised. Then one of them stopped driving, and the town that had been 10 scenic minutes from everything became a place they simply couldn't reach. The friends they'd left behind faded into the occasional phone call. The specialist was 2 hours away, and the community they'd hoped to fold into never quite opened its doors. Nothing dramatic ever happened. The walls just closed in, slowly, one quiet year at a time. And when you ask retirees who regret their move what actually went wrong, it is almost never the house. It's the very things we've spent this whole video on: the isolation, the distance from help, the friends too far to visit, the strange ache of feeling stranded somewhere beautiful. The regret clusters around the place, the connection, the access, the belonging, never the bricks. Now the second couple. They chose differently and, on paper, far more boringly. They passed on the postcard town for a plain, well-connected suburb, nothing glamorous. But the doctor was a flat walk away. A bus ran past the corner. There was a library, a bowls club, a community that didn't depend on the friends they'd brought with them. So when one of them stopped driving, almost nothing changed. They could still reach the shops, the doctor, the people they loved. The suburb just quietly kept holding them up. And that is exactly what the research finds in the people who stay happy with their move. It isn't the view, or the climate, or the size of the home. It's a short, unglamorous list. They can reach what they need without a car. Healthcare is close. There's real community to fall into. And family isn't a flight away. Walkability, access, connection, the dull things that turn out to be everything. So here's the uncomfortable truth the contrast lays bare. The dream suburb, the one that wins on looks, on price, on the holiday feeling, is very often the one that fails you the slowest and the hardest. And the sensible suburb, the one that wins on nothing you'd ever put in a photo, is very often the one that carries you all the way to the end. In retirement, the boring choice is frequently the loving one. And here's the reason this video exists at all. The difference between those two couples was not money. It was not luck. It was a handful of questions asked before anyone signed. The second couple didn't get fortunate. They tested the place. They imagined themselves older. They chose for the person they were going to become, not just the person they were. So that's where we finish. The exact questions they asked. The simple test that exposes a trapped suburb before you're stuck inside it. And the one quiet way your suburb reshapes your pension for the rest of your life. So here's the checklist they used. and the one test that does most of the work on its own. The single most useful thing you can do is change who you're shopping for. Don't choose the suburb for the person you are today. Fit, driving, full of energy. Choose it for the person you'll be at 85. Run every decision through that one filter. Not do I love this now, but will this still work for me when I'm slower, frailer, and can no longer drive? That single shift changes everything you look at. And there's one test that does most of the heavy lifting, and it costs you nothing but a few days. Before you commit to anywhere, go and live there for those few days, as if you had no car. Don't drive. Walk to the shops. Catch the bus to where the doctor would be. Carry the groceries home in your hands. See how far it truly is, how long it truly takes, how it truly feels. Because the version of you that will need that test is already on the way, and this is the one chance you get to meet your future self before it's too late to choose for them. And around that, a few more. Never judge a place on a single sunny inspection visit across the seasons, including the dead of winter, when the holiday town empties out and finally shows you what it's like to live there. Not just holiday there. Rent first, if you possibly can. A few months in the actual street beats 100 weekend visits. And talk to the people who are already old in that suburb, the local GP, the neighbors in their 80s. They will tell you in 5 minutes what no brochure ever will. Then score every suburb you're weighing against the same short list, the things that genuinely predict whether you'll still be happy there in 15 years. Can you reach the essentials on foot or by bus? How close is real healthcare? Is there a true community to belong to, beyond the friends you arrive with? And is family near enough to actually matter? If a suburb scores poorly on those today, it will not quietly improve as you age. It only gets harder. And hold the home itself to that same 85-year-old test. Single level, with no staircase to one day defeat you. A bathroom you could fit a rail into. Doorways a walking frame can pass through. The suburb has to carry you. So does the house. And there's one last reason the suburb matters far more than almost anyone realizes, because it reaches straight into your pension. Where you live quietly sets your cost of living for the rest of your life. A walkable suburb, close to services, can let you give up a car, sometimes two, and lean on bulk billing doctors and seniors' transport concessions. A car-dependent one keeps you paying for the petrol, the 2 cars, the long drives to every single appointment, forever. The very same pension stretches a world apart in those 2 places. So the real question was never just, can I afford this house? It's what will this location cost me to simply live in every fortnight for the next 20 years, and does my pension survive it? Working that out, the true suburb-by-suburb cost of a fixed income is exactly what we map out, step by step, over on Aussie Senior Finance. Before you fall for a postcard, run the geography through the numbers. Because the regret was never about the house. You can always change the house. It was about the map. So before you sign, don't choose the suburb you'd love to visit. Choose the one that will still love you back when you're 85.